arrived just days after the DP accused the two of betraying him despite helping them ascend to power. And of course, that's going to be quite interesting, and everybody's going to look out for that. And the issue with body language, of course, is going to be front and center when it comes to media focus and the focus of all who will be watching. Far from that, the Daily Nation is also focusing on that. We're told test for Uhuru Ruto on last MASHUJAA Day. And when you look at the front page, of course, it reflects the preparations for MASHUJAA Day this morning. We're told as bitter rivals in Kirinyaga County downplay their differences to make the event a success, attention will be on the president and his deputy, who are set to share the podium alongside chief guest Malawi President Lazarus Chakwera. That's another key element of this year's MASHUJAA Day, as that president comes on board to help Kenya celebrate the gains they have made, or we have made, if I do say so myself, since independence. The Business Daily this morning is also focusing on that, but the preparations, a similar picture to what they have on the Daily Nation this morning, but also Uhuru under pressure over WHO curfew rule, because he did say that they're going to be lifting it soon, but that, of course, has to be in line with certain guidelines by the World Health Organization. And we are at a positivity rate of 2.3%, which is indeed impressive given where we started and how the world has fared against the coronavirus. So we'll be looking at that with a special panelist. And to kick us off, let's take a look at some stories that are making headlines in the country. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta is tomorrow, or rather today, expected to lead Kenyans in marking this year's MASHUJAA Day celebrations. The event, which will be held in Kirinyaga County and graced by Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera as the chief guest, will be Uhuru's last MASHUJAA Day to officiate as head of state. And as our senior political affairs reporter Chris Thairu reports, among the issues that the president is expected to address include territorial boundary fight between Kenya and Somalia, the lifting of the curfew, corruption, as well as succession politics.
After officiating 8 successful MASHUJAA Day celebrations as the country's 4th head of state and government, President Uhuru Kenyatta is now set to grace his last MASHUJAA Day while in office Wednesday in Kirinyaga County. The stage is already set, and Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera, who took over office in June last year, will be the chief of guest in the celebrations, where a number of Kenyans will be honored for their bravery deeds. Given that these will be the second MASHUJAA Day celebrations under the COVID-19 pandemic, Kenyans will be expecting a detailed plan on how the government intends to ensure every Kenyan is vaccinated against the pandemic, as well as plans to resuscitate the economy, which includes lifting the 10 p.m. 4 a.m. night curfew, which has now been in force for almost 20 months now.
The economic hardships continue to bite several sectors of our economy: the transport sector, the small-scale trader sector, the hospitality sector. And the message that is coming through is that it is time that the curfew is lifted.
Also expected in his speech is how his government is dealing with the diplomatic tiff between Kenya and Somalia, which continues to threaten and compromise the security situation and trade between the two neighboring countries due to the coastal maritime dispute.
The recent installation of the Kenya Navy base Manda will significantly improve maritime security. In addition, the establishment of the Kenya Shipyards Limited at the Kenya Navy base Mutongwe, as well as the Kisumu Shipyard, will improve our naval capabilities, while at the same time contributing to our blue economy.
Kenyans will also be expecting an elaborate brief on how his regime has managed to fight corruption, given his revelation that the country loses 2 billion shillings daily due to corruption. The president might also take the opportunity to address the nation on the Pandora Papers that linked him and members of his family as owning offshore accounts and assets.
The fundamental issue in this country which is causing us problems is corruption. So we have seen a president who at one stage was wondering before, in the presence of agencies that are concerned, and he confessed that, look, I have financed you. You have the budget. Why can't you deliver? So that showed us that we have some systemic problem somewhere.
If he is going to tackle corruption from tomorrow, like he says, and he promises, it's never too late. He can tackle it even within 3 months. He can tackle it within 6 months. He has a whole 9 months to do that. If he can do that, we shall always remember him that at the end of his term, he did proud for this country.
The MASHUJAA Day celebrations will also provide an opportunity for President Uhuru Kenyatta to come face to face with his rebellious deputy William Ruto as the 2022 succession war intensifies. While Ruto continues with his aggressive campaigns to occupy the house on the hill, the president has on the other hand made it clear that he is not his preferred successor.
Uhuru is our Modamaki. Somebody who has been our kingpin for 10 years, definitely he has a God-given role to give some more form of guidance. And this is our culture.
He has sent signals in terms of what he expects of his preferred successor, the person that he expects would consolidate the gains that he has made so far, ever since he took over power, and of course, even right from the days of the former president.
The president will also be expected to elaborate the status of his various projects that will determine his legacy when he leaves office next year. Meanwhile, at least 100,000 people in Kirinyaga County have been vaccinated against COVID-19. Chris Dairo, KTN News.
And on to politics, ODM party leader Raila Odinga has finalized his 2-day tour of the Mount Kenya East region. Odinga has pledged to resuscitate the agriculture sector besides revamping infrastructure. During the tour, leaders from Meru, Tharaka Nithi and Embu unanimously agreed to support Odinga, with some lobbying for the running mate position to be reserved for the region. Alan Luchanda has been following the Azimio la Umoja tour and now reports.
On his final day of a packed itinerary of his Mount Kenya East tour, ODM party boss Raila Odinga addressed residents of Meru Town and Kobo, promising to breathe life into the agriculture sector and providing a conducive environment for small micro-entrepreneurs should he be entrusted with the country's leadership.
Tunataka kuona kama kilimo inafaidisha walimaji ili waweze kupata haki yao kulingana na jasho yao. Na wale wafanyabiashara ndogo ndogo ambao inaitwa SMEs wasaidiwe, wasio kila mara wanadhulumiwa na wale ambao wanatoza ushuru. Tutapunguza ushuru kwa wale wote ambao wanafanya biashara ndogo ndogo.
Odinga has on his Azimio la Umoja tours pledged to reserve a special fund dubbed Social Protection Fund and has told of those dismissing the plan. After the stopovers, the former Prime Minister headed to Chuka in Tharaka Nithi County, where he met ODM delegates, elected leaders and professionals. Here, Odinga got a boost for his State House bid as leaders pledged to back his candidature.
Nani anaweza kufanya mapinduzi na mabadiliko makubwa katika nchi hii? This man is tested.
Watu wa Mount Kenya East, Embu, Tharaka Nithi, Meru, from now on, mara moja tutafanya kazi na wewe moja kwa moja.
Ukiingia pale State House tafadhali, one of the tried and tested ways of, rapidly growing the economy of this country is through devolution. Hii mambo ya kukuza uchumi kutoka chini, kuna wengine wanaongea, lakini hawaongei mambo ya strengthening devolution. Wao tu mwenyewe tu ndio wanaongea hiyo maneno. Kwa hiyo baba, tafadhali sisi kama counties tuongezee pesa mashinani.
The leaders in a statement read by former Tigania West Member of Parliament Clemi Mwiria unanimously resolved to support Odinga's 5th stab at the presidency.
that will support Raila Odinga because he has demonstrated to be a true patriot of Kenya.
The region received a nod from the Registrar of Political Parties a week ago to have the Devolution Empowerment Party that retained the famous bus symbol. The leaders saying yes, they will support Odinga, but won't lose their political identity. The visit by Odinga also seeing political antagonist Peter Munya and Kiraitu Murungi burying the hatchet. It is a wrap for the ODM party boss Raila Odinga's tour of the Mount Kenya East region, promising to revive the agriculture sector, besides securing more market for the miraa commodity. But for the local leadership in the three counties of Tharaka Nithi, Embu and Meru, it is now rooting for one of their own to be Odinga's running mate. Alan Ochanda, KTN News in the county of Tharaka Nithi.
All right, now Deputy President William Ruto has concluded his 6-day tour of the coastal region in a charm offensive seeking to win over residents to his side ahead of the 2022 elections. Ruto's visit being part of efforts to make inroads in a region perceived to be an ODM stronghold. Ruto and his allies are piling pressure on President Uhuru Kenyatta to lift the curfew when he addresses his last MASHUJAA day as head of state. Our senior political affairs reporter Jeff Kirui with the details about the DP's LAMU visit.
Deputy President William Ruto's onslaught on his political nemesis, ODM leader Raila Odinga's stronghold of the coastal region continues. DP Ruto wrapping his 6-day tour of the region, calling on residents to support his bid for presidency in the 2022 polls.
Vile nilisimama na rais mpaka akakuwa Uhuru Kenyatta mpaka akakuwa rais, mimi nitasimama na hawa vijana mpaka wapate kazi. Mimi nitasimama na hawa kina mama mboga na wafanyi biashara mpaka wapate pesa ya kuinua biashara yao. Na mimi nitasimama na hawa wakulima mpaka wapate mbegu, mbolea na soko ya sawasawa, tuondoe njaa katika Kenya na tufukuze umaskini mashinani.
Aliyeniambia ni muunge naibu wa rais katika uchaguzi wa 2022 si mwingine bali ni Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
William Ruto kwa uwezo wa Mwenyezi Mungu ndio atakuwa rais wa 5 wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, na sisi lazima tuunde uhusiano na urafiki kabla hapo wakati.
Ruto and his allies took ODM leader Raila Odinga head on over his agenda. Raila has been making inroads in Mount Kenya region, which the DP has been banking on his political journey to State House.
Mtu alishindwa 1992, akashindwa 1997, akashindwa 2002, akashindwa 2013, akashindwa 2017. Mtu kama huyo unakungwa mkono?
Tutapigia umoja wetu kura. Na umoja wetu sio lazima aitwe Nyoro ama aitwe Kemani. Umoja wetu this time na 2022 anaitwa William Kamau Samoei Ruto.
Anawadanganya hapa, anamwambia ati ni azimio la umoja, lakini ndani yake na ukweli wa ile azimio ni azimio la matapeli.
Sera yetu ni ya bottom up. Tunaanza na wale walio chini, tuwapandishe ngazi ya uchumi ili tuweke Kenya mahali ambapo panapatikana usawa, tuondoe ubaguzi na tuhakikishe ya kwamba hakuna Wakenya wengine wanawachwa nyuma.
The leaders challenged President Uhuru Kenyatta to lift curfew, arguing that it is hurting many Kenyans economically.
Rais atuondolee curfew vile ameondolea wale wakubwa, wanaendelea na mikutano, wanaendelea kutajirika. Atufungulie curfew na sisi turudi kazini, tutafute riziki, kwa sababu hiyo ndio kitu ya maana.
Lakini rais wetu amesahau kuna wanabiashara wanaofanya biashara yao usiku na wanaumia.
Ruto will tomorrow attend the 12th MASHUJAA Day celebrations in Kirinyaga County, celebrations that will see all top bigwigs come face to face. Jeff Kirui, KTN News.
All right, now it's time to switch gears into press review. And of course, MASHUJAA Day is the biggest story this morning. The front page of the Standard this morning tells us all eyes are on Uhuru, Ruto and Raila today. It will be the first time President Uhuru Kenyatta will be sharing the podium with his deputy and ODM leader Raila Odinga in his backyard, just days after the DP accused the two of betraying him despite helping them ascend to power. A lot of political undertones right right there, despite the day being about independence and the gains the country has made. Now, joining me this morning to take a look at these and many other stories that are making headlines are Bunyasi Sakwa, Nambale Member of Parliament. He's also a senior economist. Also, Dr. Exen Iraqi, a senior economist. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen, bright and early.
Thank you.
All right, now let's take a look at the MASHUJAA Day stories that are making headlines. We of course know what MASHUJAA Day is all about, but then there is all this politics that seems to be overshadowing the major, or rather the intended theme of the day. Test for Uhuru, Ruto on last MASHUJAA Day, as bitter rivals in Kirinyaga County downplay their differences to make the event a success. Attention will be on President Kenyatta, Deputy William Ruto, who are set to share the podium alongside chief guest Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera. Honorable Sakwa Bunyasi, what do you make of the upcoming MASHUJAA Day? First of all, before we get into the politics that is inevitably going to be a focus even as that day goes by, tell us what you feel Kenya has achieved so far since independence, and perhaps what we should be celebrating.
I think Kenya has come a long way since independence. At the time of independence, we were a very fragile state, extremely fragile, with the colonial power hanging over us, with the internal issues unresolved in respect of what to do with the freedom fighters and what was to become of a modern army, and a fairly difficult 60s, assassinations and political instability. 70s a lot more stable, very rapid growth, and the 80s entered a prolonged period of sort of a command rule and an attempt at a command economy. We've come a long way. What I think is new for me in the 2000s is that we are now consciously looking out for our heroes, our everyday heroes and unusual heroes and so on. We had, of course, highs of Wangari Maathai winning a Nobel Prize, and that was at the time our idea of who our heroes were. But I think now we are realizing that we have a lot of heroes next door, and I think that really for me is a very good development. I think this should go down even in devolution, so that down to the villages you know who are your heroes. There are many people helping young people survive. There are many people who are lending a hand. There are many people who are sacrificing their comfortable lifestyles to help others. I see that all the time in my own constituency and in my county, and I'm sure it's true all over Kenya. So I think MASHUJAA Day presents, yet I do not know who will be celebrated as such, but I think that the day itself is important. It changed its old name into the new name, recognizing a much broader spectrum of heroes than we used to do. I was very keen to see the other day that as a result of Honorable Raila's visit to Mrs. What do you call her? The spouse of our premier freedom fighter. And it was a very Mandela-type moment, because Mandela, who the first time when he arrived at the airport, he wanted to know where the widow of the most famous hero of Kenya's independence, pre-independence fight was. So I think that we're beginning to be proud of ourselves. We can only do more.
Can only do more, that is true. Now, as we focus also on the common MASHUJAA, far from the Mau Mau fighters, I'd like to know, in your view, what gains have we made since independence, Dr. Exen Iraqi, and perhaps what do you anticipate, what heroes do you anticipate will be celebrated as we await the pomp and color and fit that comes with MASHUJAA Day?
Good morning, and my colleague has really elaborated on the key achievements this country has attained since independence. He is older than me, and probably is more articulate on that. Before maybe I respond to your question, I would address an issue that I believe we have not given it as much weight as expected. When we talk of heroes in this country, there are two classes of heroes that we have not given enough
enough recognition. If you go to Taita Taveta today, you find a very strange cemetery, the cemetery for Indian soldiers who fought against Germans in World War I. And they probably stopped Germans from making Kenya a colony. And I don't think Indians have got enough credit for that achievement. The second class of forgotten heroes are Kenyan, indigenous Kenyans, who coincidentally went to stop Japanese from invading the Indian continent. Very interesting coincidence. Indians came and helped stop Germans from invading Kenya. And then later on, Africans went to Indian subcontinent to stop Japanese from invading India. So those two types of heroes have not been given enough recognition in this country. I have uncles, I have relatives who went and fought in Burma, very humid and very tropical region, and luckily they came back home. I don't think these two types of heroes have been given enough recognition. Number three, and I hope this will not be politically very sensitive, we talk of Dedan Kimathi as one of the Kenya's most famous heroes. But I think so far, 58 years, we have never given him a decent burial. And I think with all the recent developments in DNA, it is time we identified his grave and we gave him a hero's burial. It's not enough to go and see his window. It is the time we use the modern technology, we find out where he was buried, we get his body, and we give him a very decent burial. On achievements since independence, I think we have come from far. The most important achievement is that for the first time in history, we are seeing ourselves as a nation. We are slowly recognizing that Kenya is a nation among other nations. If you talk to the young people in this country on the streets and you ask them, where do you come from? They'll tell you, I come from a certain county. Ask them, what is your tribe? They are nowadays openly saying, I'm a Kenyan. And to me, that's a very big achievement. So because we are nowadays talking as economists, we have become homo economicals. Everybody's talking about economics. The focus on economic issues is slowly making Kenya a one nation. But we have a long way to go. We still have our leaders fighting at the top, as the headlines are showing us. So we need to start seeing ourselves as one nation that has a common destiny, and very important, we start recognizing heroes from every sector. Nobody said that you must be a politician to become a hero. You can be a hero in your own home. You can be a hero on the streets. You can be a hero in whichever sector you work in. So let's use heroism to start economic growth so that this country can become better for our children than it is today.
Right, a very unique perspective right there. Thank you very much, Dr. Iraki. And where, if you don't know the sacrifice or you don't understand the weight of the sacrifice that those soldiers of Indian descent gave, you can take a look at the genocidal history of countries such as Namibia to understand what may have happened to Kenya were it colonized or taken over by the German. Not to say that one is better than the other, but of course they might have, Kenya's history might have been very different had they not prevailed. Now, let's focus on some of the other issues, or rather the issues that may come out of this current event that will be happening along the day. And let's first start off with the issue of corruption. Now, we've heard in a story that was aired earlier on, done by Chris Thairu, where we're having a politician saying that it is not too late for the president actually to roll out a strategy to tackle corruption, even as this is the sunset of his tenure as president of Kenya. What do you make of that, and do you think that might feature prominently in this, in his speech or in this year's celebrations, Mr. or rather Honorable Bunyasi?
Personally, it's not something I'm looking for. I think it will be. It's not going to amount to much. I think it's been 9 years. You don't wait until the under 1 year of your 10-year tenure to really make anything dramatic. I do not think that anything much will happen. What I expect is probably condemnations of persons or individuals, but I do not see any, for example, sweeping legislative proposal that he would like to see. I do not see him, for example, pushing the anti-graft institutions like EACC, DPP, and DCI, other than probably exhortations. I personally, I do not think much will come out of that. And if that was to have happened, I think it should have been preceded by, I think at the minimum, legislative changes to tighten fines, to sort of push these institutions to work better. The other day we just saw the DPP and the DCI perhaps will end up in court or somewhere. That's not a very good sign. And I don't see the president going far on this one. I am not hopeful at all.
Very pessimistic view. Dr. Exen Iraki, are you optimistic of something positive coming out of the president in terms of the war against corruption?
In about 2-3 months' time, Americans withdrew from Afghanistan. And the media kept on saying this is America's longest war. I would probably say the same in Kenya. War on corruption has been Kenya's longest war. And the same way Americans withdrew from Afghanistan is not the same way we should withdraw from this war on corruption. I believe what is lacking in this war on corruption is political will. I think we have all the tools, we have all the means we can use to fight corruption. Because corruption is not perpetrated in Kenya by Ugandans or Tanzanians or other neighboring countries or foreigners. It is perpetrated by us, by our brothers, by our sisters. So if we had political will, we would win this war. But in the last several years, I've had politicians make pronouncements about corruption. They have not done much. So I totally agree with my colleague here that I don't expect much when it comes to war on corruption. But if the politicians can come together the way they have come together, for example, on BBI, or the way they are going for political rallies, and use that political will to fight corruption, I'm sure it is a vice we can add or we can eliminate, because a very big drag on our economy. In fact, when we talk of economic growth, when we talk of achievements in this country, we would have done much better, much better if corruption was not the millstone on our necks. So let's come together, let's have political will. It is a war we can win, but it's not an easy war. But I'm very optimistic about that.
Well, Sakwa, given the political season that we are in, do you think that is also a contributor to perhaps a less chance of corruption being top on the agenda for the president? Because, of course, in these times, maybe due to political interest, not many people want to, ruffle feathers of because you want to have the goodwill of everyone, or perhaps those who feel can help you in whatever political direction you want to take or you are interested in. Do you think that also influences perhaps there not being a chance of corruption being top on the agenda for the presidency, for government?
Thank you, Trix. I think that's certainly true. In a season like this, the reason, or perhaps excuse, depending on how you look at it, would be that it's a time to come together, especially now that there have been calls for everybody to come together on one side so they can deal with the emerging equation. I doubt that it will be time to push what must be really obvious cases of corruption. But however, each season seems to have that kind of excuse. This one is because we must come together to elections. But on other, in the last, let's say, since independence, but let's just take the 9 years of this current administration, there seems to have been one reason or another, a reluctance to take this head on. Look at the cases that have come out in the public domain through EACC's effort. And I must say that with everything taken together, EACC has done a great job, and maybe would have done a lot better if they had no shackles on their necks. But what has happened? It just goes completely quiet, absolutely quiet, and you don't hear of it. Obviously, if it exceeds 10 years, you've not heard of it, nothing much will come out of it. So I think, yes, it's a correct argument that you put in respect of this season, but every season has always had another excuse. So I just don't think this is in fact going in any way now to be exceptional or the real reason why we are not tackling corruption. The law does not, whether it is Sunday or Monday, Friday or Saturday, the law doesn't give you any excuse to commit a crime and get away with it. If they just let the institutions of law enforcement take their own course, then the political leadership would have then be saying, and there are many leaderships, I mean, it's not just the presidency, it's parliament and others, then they would be supervising these institutions, calling on them to do their bit and conclude cases. But as it is, you see, I have noticed, for example, some years back, is only when the president would say something about corruption, that the DPP would then suddenly be very busy, and then you can see dramatic arrests and so on, quite useless in themselves, because it's better to get somebody quietly and charge him vigorously than sort of grab him, throw him in the Land Rover, then go quiet about it. I think this has been drama that is completely an anti-climax.
Right. And as Honorable Bunyasi says, the season is not favorable for a war on corruption. Let's wait and see what the events will bring us as far as that is concerned. But let's take a short break. When we come back, we shall take a look at other facets of the Kenyan situation today as we celebrate MASHUJAA Day, the economy, succession politics, agriculture for central Kenya. Of course, Somalia, Kenya, boundary round is also going to be a feature that is expected. Let's take a break. When we come back, we shall be digging deeper into these aspects of it. Do stay tuned.
This is KTN News.
Express visawasawa. Sawa na Sawa Liquid Hand Wash inapatikana katika variant 3, original, strawberry na aloe vera. Sawa Liquid Hand Wash yenye harufu ya kuvutia, uhakikisha mikono yako inabaki kuwa laini. Bidhaa bora kutoka Pwani Oil Products Limited.
Credo, and there's absolutely no way anything inaingiana. If you run out of Credo and that Fuliza loan can't let you access your airtime, or you've looked everywhere for a Credo vendor but ako nowhere to be seen. Hi Nawas, courtesy of Standard Group. You can now get airtime easily and conveniently by dialing *207#. Dial now and get airtime straight to your phone. No hassle, no fuss.
Express visawasawa. Sawa na Sawa Liquid Hand Wash inapatikana katika variant 3, original, strawberry na aloe vera. Sawa Liquid Hand Wash yenye harufu ya kuvutia, uhakikisha mikono yako inabaki kuwa laini. Bidhaa bora kutoka Pwani Oil Products Limited.